In this video, we're going to take a look at PowerShell. PowerShell is a Microsoft command line interface, and though it might look like you're working at the normal Windows command line interface, PowerShell is quite different. Back in around 2006, Microsoft was trying to increase the ability to run scripts from their interface, similar to what you can do in Bash in the Linux environment. However, they were having a lot of problems with trying to make the commands work, and their scripting host engine was showing a lot of potential security vulnerabilities. So they came up with this new interface, originally nicknamed Monad, and eventually in 2006 was released as Windows PowerShell. In 2016, 10 years later, they made a significant change for Microsoft and they moved this to the open source market. And now it is now PowerShell Core, and you can download this and run it on CentOS, Ubuntu, Mac OS, and some other operating systems as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at how PowerShell works. Well, the first thing that you're going to notice is that you're looking at the command window, and by default the background is blue, and you're going to see this little PS over here in the corner. Other than that, you're really not going to notice any difference than being in a regular command environment. For many commands, you might need to run the PowerShell in administrator mode by simply right-clicking it. But before I go too further, you might be more comfortable with Windows command line. For example, if I type dir, then you'll notice that dir still works. If I type cls, clear screen works. But also notice if I type ls or clear. For those of you who knew what I just did, I just typed some Linux commands. How does that work in here? Well, it works because Windows PowerShell created a bunch of aliases to let us continue to use some of the tools that we're commonly used to using. However, they're now pointing to the new commands in PowerShell. To see the list of the current aliases, you can just type alias and enter. And you can see if I scroll up, there is the ls, which is now pointing to a command called getChildItem, and dir, same thing. So you can create your own aliases, and these are the ones that have already been established for you. Now the commands that you see here, getChildItem, remove item, convert path, these are the new commands in PowerShell. PowerShell commands are called Commandlets, cmdlets. They consist of a verb, a dash, and a noun. So when you run a commandlet in PowerShell, get dash child item, you are now running the new PowerShell commandlet. One of the nice things about PowerShell, unlike its Linux equivalent, is that PowerShell is not case sensitive. So if I type in get dash child item, notice that it works just fine. Another thing that you can do when working in the PowerShell interface, you can use your up arrow to go back to previously run commands. And you can use what's called tab complete. So if I start typing get dash ch and I press tab, it's going to now start cycling me through all the commandlets that meet this criteria. If I just take this back to get c, you're going to see that it's going to have a lot more of these different commandlets. Okay, so let's take a look at how do you get help from using PowerShell. So the way to get help is you go get dash commandlet, or excuse me, let's do child item, get help. That didn't work because you have to use the help option before you use the commandlet. You're probably more familiar with typing in the command and then slash question mark or dash h. So we're going to try this again. I'm going to turn the caps lock off. I'm going to go get help, get child item. And now you can see that I've got the basics of the online, or the, of the help, the syntax, with a very brief description of what these commands can do. Now there are more options that you can use. One of the ones that you're going to like is if you use dash examples, detailed, full, or online. Let's do it with dash examples. And you can see now that I can get some examples of how to use PowerShell without ever having to run the command. So this is actually how I first learned PowerShell, because when it first came out, there were no books or videos available at that time. So I can see that I can add some options to get other information here as well. Now I'm going to do the get child item dash online, and provided you have a internet connection, you're going to receive a online option for get child item and its related things in a more graphical interface. All right, so we're not going to really concentrate too much on that. All right, the next thing I want to show you is how to actually run some other commands. So I want to look at more commands in PowerShell, or excuse me, Commandlets. I'm going to go get command, and this time I'm going to say I want to look for all nouns, because remember it's a verb noun commandlet, that have the word item in it. And that's going to show me all the commandlets that actually have the word item somewhere in the noun portion of the name. I can do the same thing and say, well, let me see all the commands that have the verb of get. And you can see there's quite a few of them that have the word get. So these are some ways, and I could actually combine both to get a more detailed. I can say noun, and I'll say unique. And that gives me just the one specific commandlet. Now another thing you can do is you can use the wildcard. So if I go get command and I say star or asterisk DNS asterisk, that is going to show me all of the commands that have DNS somewhere inside their name. And we'll take an enter, and we'll take a closer look at this command right here. Now understand, when you're working in PowerShell, this isn't just working at a command prompt as you were in the command environment, the command line environment. You're not just looking at files, you're not just looking at files, directories, and just running some basic utilities. Microsoft has created what are called providers. And so right now I am actually concentrating my PowerShell environment in the file system provider. But there are other providers, and there's more available depending on what kind of system you're on and what you're running on that system. So if I type in get, click back in the window, get -ps and tab complete, I'm actually looking for something called PS provider. Okay, that's PowerShell provider. Press enter, and you can see that these are the providers that are currently available to me on this version of Windows. I am currently working in the file system provider, and I know that because my prompt is showing a C:. I can change to the registry, I can look at my aliases, I can look at variables. So let's look at another one or two of these providers. So if I wanted to go to the registry, HKeyLM stands for HKey local machine, HKeyCU is HKey current user. So if I wanted to look at the registry and settings in the registry, I can go to one of these providers. The way you move to these providers, the easiest way is to simply use the drive as a shortcut. So if I want to go to HKey local machine, I'm going to go CD space HKLM:. When I press enter, notice that my PowerShell prompt has now changed from C: to HKeyLM. Watch what happens now when we run get child item. And don't worry about the red, that's because we're not allowed to view the registry information inside the registry, or the SAM portion, which is your account. But what I'm looking at here is the registry, not the file system. So if I wanted to go to software, I can just change my directory or my focus to software, and now I can run get child item again, and now I'm looking at the software portion of my Windows registry. So now I don't have to run regedit to go to the registry if I just wanted to look up and see something that's in here, because the commandlets will change their focus depending on the provider that you're in. Let's look at those providers again. So I can type in get-ps provider, And let's look over at variables. So if I go cd variable colon, and I'm going to clear my screen and type get child item, you can see now I'm looking at variables. And these are the default variables that are currently recognized on this particular system. And then to go back to my file system, cd space c colon, because I'm changing again the provider, not the directory. And now I'm back at the practice folder. Now we're going to look at a final few commandlets that you can run that'll make your working environment more productive. The first one is the commandlet called get history. So I'm going to type get history, remember tab complete, and notice it's going to show me all the commandlets that I have typed previously during this session. Now it will store up into whatever the maximum count variable is, which by default is 4096 files. If I wanted to run one of these previous commandlets, let's say I want to run that one all the way back up there on number 5, I can go invoke history and then just pick the number. And it will then run that commandlet to the one that you asked. If I want to only see the last few, I can say, show me the last 6 commandlets that are in my history. And that will let me then just focus in on those there as well. Now, another feature that you may like is you can record your entire session of PowerShell, and you can go back later and look at the commands you typed as well as the output you got, and in a file that's going to create for you automatically. And this is called the transcript command. Now I've already run it. It's called start transcript, and it saves a file automatically in my documents or my users folder. We'll come back at the end of this session and we'll take a look at that transcript, and we'll do a stop transcript at that time. Other things that you can do. So when we did the get child item, notice everything was in a column format, but I can go get child item and I can change this to a list format. Oops. And what we're doing here is we're going to take this output and we're going to direct it into another command, and that is called piping. So if I go the vertical key, which is your pipe key, and then format list, it's going to take my get child item output or input, the result, and then send it over to format list. The result is going to be every file in its own list with all the property information included here as well. So instead of this one being in a column format, we're seeing it in a list format. And you can use format table, which is the default for the get child item, format list on most of your files here as well. Now, maybe I want to run, I want to look at that get child item one more time. And notice that it's in order by alphabet, A to Z. And that's fine, but maybe I want to look for large files, and I would rather see my get child item output in order by its length. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to pipe the output to another commandlet called sort object, and I'm going to sort it by length, and I can tab complete that because it recognizes is that a property of get child item, and I want to have it in descending order, so I'm going to go dash D and tab, and that's going to give it to me from large to small. Enter. And you can see that we now have our output sorted in large to small. Maybe I want to print out of this. Maybe I want to go ahead and save this to a file. So I can up arrow, pipe it one more time, and this time I'm going to call it out file, and I'm going to call it a file called these files or something. When you save it, you have to specify where you're saving it. I want to save it in my current folder. The dot in the command line environment represents the current folder. So I'm saying save this in my current folder, and let's call it myfiles2.txt. And I can now look here and go get child item, my star, and we got a my files. Oh, that's what I called it. So now I can just say notepad myfiles.txt, And there is my output, and you can see it's in the order by the length. Another little neat trick is Windows had a great utility called Clip, which let you put information in the clipboard. So if I want to go ahead and do a get child item of only the files that started with the letter M, I can pipe this to the clipboard. And I can go to any of my programs and Control V, but if I want to see what's in the clipboard, all I have to do is type get clipboard, and you can see what would be pasted into another program. So instead of having to create a file and open it, if you already have a file that you want, you can just certainly use the clipboard here as well. And the final thing that I said I was going to show you was the transcript. So I'm going to go ahead and type in stop transcript. And I now have a file in my documents folder called PowerShell transcript. So let's bring that up. And I'm going to bring this over here to the main window. So I'm going to go to users, Linda, and it's in documents. So we're going to go down one more folder to documents. And there is now a file in here called PowerShell transcript something. Okay, and it's right here. So just double click this, make it bigger. Here's a lot of interesting information. You can see it tells me when I started this transcript, the machine I was on, PowerShell version that I'm on, what compatible versions of PowerShell will this work with, and now here are the commandlets that I typed and the resulting output. So if I scroll down, there's my format list and my output. So you can see if you're doing a lot, your PowerShell file could get quite lengthy. Here's my export. So I like this a lot because if you're troubleshooting or you're trying to document something that you're doing, instead of having to stop and paste it and put it in another file, just save a transcript. Then I can just cut and paste out of here what I need. So these are some of the PowerShell commandlets that you might find useful as you start working your way through using PowerShell. We started by looking at alias so that we could see the commands that we're most comfortable with and what the new PowerShell commandlets are. Again, for example, clear. Clear is now clear-host. If you were a cat person in Linux, it's get content. Echo is now write output. We looked at how to do get command with noun and verb. We looked at wildcards. We looked a lot at get child item. We also looked at providers and how to move between providers, how to use the format command, the history command, and how to save your file in a actual file or in a clip or memory environment. So hopefully this will get you started and excited for working in PowerShell.